What's happening with you? It's Big Vern at App Stupid. App like you got some sense. Smash the like and subscribe button. We like it when you do that here. Also, if you're digging the content, follow us on all of our social platforms. You see them right here before your eyes. And if you want to fund the madness directly, hit us up in the Cash App at $Vern Dollars. That's $Vern Dollars. Got a great show for you lined up today. The Suns, they get rid of Frank Vogel and what I thought was the dumbest move ever. And it's not all his fault. Then Brian Kelly starts virtue signaling at LSU, followed by Glenn Big Baby Davis. He got sentenced to 40 months in federal prison, and want to talk a little bit in depth about that case. And Michigan State's running back, Mr. Jarrett Manham, he's actually transferred to Minnesota, the Golden Gophers. So, action-packed show for you. Then I got a little story time I like to jump into. We'll get into all of that when we come back from a quick 20 from an unofficial sponsor of the show. This is Big Vern at App Stupid. Drop the spot. Little Caesars Pizza. Download the app, order online, or visit the good folks at your local pizza. Little Caesars. Try the Crazy Puffs for $3.99. You can add a 2-liter Coke with it. Get that up to about $5.99. And then you can start your weekend off right with the pretzel crust stuffed pizza with cheese sauce at Little Caesars. So many items. Little Caesars Pizza. So we're going to go ahead and start in the association. The Suns, they fire Frank Vogel after a first-round sweep against the Timberwolves in the NBA playoffs. Now, I always, if I'm going to be fair, if I'm going to be the mayor of fair, just like I give San Francisco a lot of flack for the blame game and finger pointing, when it's really upper management's fault that this has happened. And they need him to be the fall guy. And so it's a bad look when I see the Suns go 49er. And this is just what they did. Now, this is coming to you out of an article. The CBS Sports and Sam Quinn, the Phoenix Suns, they fired the head coach Frank Vogel after his team announced Thursday the decision came after a disappointing season in which the Suns, who expected to compete for the NBA championships, were swept out of the first round by the Minnesota Timberwolves. And the reason that they gave was that the Minnesota Timberwolves have not won a playoff series in 20 years. Vogel lasted only 1 year on the job in Phoenix. Now, this was out of the blue because this caught Frank Vogel off guard. And this was after his post-exit interview when he was asked, are you going to be back next year? And he confidently said he was going to be back next year after talking with the owner of the team. But even if you don't respect competition, because that's what this sounds like, saying that, oh, just because you lost to the Minnesota Timberwolves and they haven't won a playoff game or a series in 20 years, and so we got to get rid of you. And I'll be the first to go on record and say, this was the dumbest move I've ever seen from them in a while. You fired the last coach because you couldn't win the Western Conference Finals. And now you're getting rid of the coach for trying to make do with a roster you picked. And general manager James Jones, now he's the Suns' president of basketball operations, and he had something to say that just made me curious. He said, as we did at the press conference on Monday, May the 1st, team leadership, including myself, Josh Bartelstein, and ownership, would be looking across basketball operations to determine what makes the needed changes that we can get a championship in Phoenix. Well, whose idea was it to bring in Kevin Durant? Whose idea was that? Because that wasn't Frank Vogel's idea. Whose idea was it to trade away the youth in Phoenix? That was not Frank Vogel. And whose idea was it to get rid of DeAndre Ayton? Here's a clue. It wasn't Frank Vogel in any of those situations. But he's the fall guy. And what other horseshit excuse did James Jones have to say, or he was selling in a press corps? After thoughtful review of the season, we concluded that we needed a different head coach. What? Now, I am not going to be a staunch defender of Frank Vogel, but his style of coaching was not going to go ahead and work out. Who pulled the trigger for Bradley Beal? You all looked older. In Minnesota, you all just got outmatched. It had nothing to do with coaching. It had nothing to do with coaching. As you know, on the channel, we talked about when Anthony Davis gets in front of a live mic and he says, at times, we don't know what we're doing on offense and defense. Now, that's a coaching thing. And then, like I also said, you don't say those things out loud. But Phoenix was doing it all year long because they really didn't respect Frank Vogel, and we'll get into that. We'll come back to that. Put a pin in that. Now, we appreciate Frank's hard work and commitment. Yeah, right. We are here to win a championship, and last season was way below our expectations. We will continue to evaluate our operation and make the necessary changes to reach our championship caliber goals. You're not going to get there. You have Bradley Beal. You're not going to get there. You are not going to get there. And also, what in the hell is he talking about? You're out of money and you can't fix your way out of an age problem. Also, when you fire the entire staff, that puts a burden on the players because they have to learn a whole new playbook. I'm used to upper management making dumbass moves, but here's the rich part. Jones says we all take accountability, and it's my job, along with Josh and ownership, to build a championship team. Now that's horseshit. And if you're taking accountability with that statement, and if it's true, sir, then you'd be the one fired and looking for another gig. But you're not. You're blaming other people. He was blaming other people in this. If you want to say Frank just wasn't a good fit, just say he wasn't a good fit. But you don't sit up here and make these distinctions, and then now you're saying, oh, well, Frank, he went ahead and he lost to the Timberwolves, and they haven't won a playoff series in 20 years. Yeah, they haven't, but I'm sorry, they have the future of the NBA playing on their team. They have a former three-point shootout champion in Karl Anthony Towns on their team. They've got an experienced veteran point guard in Mike Conley. And also they have a 7-foot rim protector in Rudy Gobert. The matchup was a matchup that favored them, and it favored them on the youth side. Now, Gobert's no spring chicken, but when Phoenix gave away Ayton to Portland, you have Eubanks, and Eubanks he's a hustle. He fights to the end. Guy runs the floor very well. Guy blocks shots, dives for loose balls. But then you pick up Yusuf Nurkic. And when he wasn't getting karate chopped in the neck by Draymond Green and Green was all in his head, he's got foot problems, documented. And you made these trades. It didn't make you better. Now, granted, you got the best Kevin Durant this year. He's been better this year since 2019, but he's on the backside of his career. He's in his 30s. Devin Booker is the star of that team. And him trying to fit in with an aging slow Bradley Beal and Kevin Durant on his last legs, that's what hurt you. You tried the big three with a guy who's in his prime. You need to let Devin Booker run loose. Again, if you want to say he lost control of the team, remember I said put a pin in that. We can come back to that. And guys were not led, then just say that. Because there's documented dust-ups in the organization around that same statement. And that incident is from April the 9th against the Clippers. On this night, Suns players aren't buying what Frank Vogel is selling. He's trying to get tough. He's got these loud outbursts, and it seems forced, and it's out of character, and people can see it in his eyes. And he's trying to motivate his guys. Now, it continued the next day at the shoot-around in Los Angeles. Vogel tearing into the Suns before that night's road win over the Clippers. Vogel's eruption left players rolling their eyes and also throwing their hands up and throwing towels at this man. That was out of the Atlantic, and that's what was told to the reporters, of the beat reporters that was actually asking those questions, and they was giving them stories and many more stories about how the players, they just didn't respect Frank Vogel. You put him in a no-win situation with pieces that you drafted. Well, no, pieces you traded for. You didn't draft any of these guys. You got a center with bad feet who's injury prone. You got a backup guy who's in his youth, but you barely played him. Kevin Durant didn't like the way he was used in the offense. He felt like he should have been instrumental a little bit more. Then you bring in Bradley Beal, who Bradley Beal just looked awful that series. Super slow. He couldn't stop anybody breathing. I mean, of course, you're going to have to put Booker on Ant-Man, but after you go ahead and switch off Booker, if he's in foul trouble, you think Bradley Beal can guard Anthony Edwards? Again, that statement that the Timberwolves hadn't won a playoff series in 20 years, that's one of those statements where you don't respect competition and you don't view them as the Timberwolves of 2024. In your mind, you're looking at them as the Timberwolves of 2004. And maybe you've been in your job too long where you can't see the writing on the wall. But Frank Vogel got fired. That's my 2 cents. I thought it was a stupid move. But again, I'm not the one signing the checks in Phoenix. We'll be back. A lot more show to go. This is Big Vern and App Stupid.